Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to Big Blend Radio. Today, author Kimberly Behre Kenna is back on our show. She first joined us with her debut middle grade novel, Artemis Spark and the Sound Seekers Brigade, which we love. And now she's back, her second book out within 6 months, because Kimberly's, am I allowed to call you a badass? Like, seriously.
Yes.
Or I should call you a brave girl, right?
Yeah, either or.
But this is the second book in your Brave Girls collection. So how many books do you see coming in this collection? Like I heard through the grapevine, we like wine, that
Yes.
you've got a third one already almost ready to come out too. So you've been busy. So is this going to go beyond the 3?
Oh yeah, I think so. Because there's a 4th that I've started, and then I have to, think more about the 5th. But the 3rd is pretty much complete, but I'm working on some edits, and then the 4th just beginning.
Give everybody just kind of an overview of what started the Brave Girls collection, and maybe just touch on Artemis Spark again so everybody knows about her, and then we can get into your next novel that is coming out August 3rd, everyone. It's Jett Jamison. This is Jett Jamison and the Secret Storm. And I love the title once again. You get right to it, because when I think about young girls and things that they experience, and we go through a lot as young girls and as women, and that secret storm is something I think is always held within. And if it doesn't get fixed, can end up being a secret storm that just keeps brewing, right?
Was out of control. Yes. Yeah. Well, so you were asking about how it all began.
Yeah, the Brave Girls collection, and then why, going from Artemis to Jett Jamison.
Sure. So Artemis sort of sprang out of my time as a teacher, a 5th grade teacher. And as you recall, I was doing some hiking in a place where I brought my students. I taught the ecology of Long Island Sound when I was still in the classroom, and I'd bring the kids to the salt marsh. And then after I left the classroom, I happened to have been hiking around that area. And that's when the story of Artemis came to me. And it was a story of basically of how I, as a kid, a very shy child, found solace in nature. And loving walking these trails around the salt marsh, Artemis came to me, and we were thinking, what if they didn't exist? What would it be like to not have our nature sanctuaries? And unfortunately, lots of them are deteriorating this right around now. So Artemis came into me that way, and the story sprang from that. The second book, Jett Jamison, also came to me as another girl trying to find voice. It's a common topic in middle grade. And that gave me the idea of Brave Girls. So I thought, I don't think I'll be doing a series that would be, Artemis in a new adventure, but instead I seem to be coming up with all these girl protagonists that are finding some sort of solace in nature or teachings in nature, and becoming brave as they fight through their challenges in order to be heard and seen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And both going through some personal challenges at home. Artemis did with her mom and mom's dude. Let's put him that way. Right, the dude in the hotel. And having to stand up to even just immediate family is very hard. And now going to Jett Jamison, to where one of her places was a library. That's a place you found solace as a kid, and today, don't we all?
Yes.
And that, well, I think we're needing to stand up for our libraries as a whole. And I love that Jett Jamison is also standing up for books that are being banned, which is something insane. I mean, it's insanity. I've actually seen some people with those, those little small libraries outside people's homes,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
lending libraries, like
Yeah.
go, this is all banned books, come and get them,
I love that. I love
I know,
that.
I'm like, yeah, power to that. But then Jett Jamison is also, her secret storm is, so she's standing up for libraries, banned books, also her personal self of going through sexual trauma. And that's something very hard to understand at a young age. And some children don't even understand what that is.
That's true. So this story sprang from a lot of personal connections. The library itself is based on my local hometown library, where I've spent a ton of time. It's a beautiful historic library that I could go into detail on, the James Blackstone Library. But it was also, my mom grew up in Brantford, and she came from a very busy family in a small house, and she would walk to this library to find peace and quiet. And she happened to also make friends with the nuns across the street at St. Mary's Church. So that kind of sparked me, along with the fact that I myself had spent time there. My grandson has spent time there. It was just this library that holds so many stories and memories for my family. So that was a huge inspiration. And Jett came to me with her own challenges and some secrets that she was trying to really, really tamp down and push down, that came in the form of hearing voices in her head. And that all springs from my own personal life of having been sexually abused as a child and never even coming to terms with it in the way of facing up to it until I was in my 50s. And that when that happened, it was a very tough time. And I did go to a therapist, and it's because of this therapist that I'm a writer, because I was unable to talk about my experience. I was unable to really get anything out of my conversation with my therapist. So she said, have you ever thought of just writing a couple things down? Just write down some feelings, whatever, she left it really loose. And then as soon as I started writing, just all came out. A lot of very raw stuff that would never, ever be publicized. I wouldn't want it to be. But ultimately, it spilled over into writing for kids. And that's a little more background about the whole Brave Girl thing. But in particular, Jett Jamison, is some of what she goes through is based on what I myself felt and went through. The sound of a jet overhead and certain smells, those can all trigger kids, adults that have trauma in their background. So I wrote the book in hopes that it'll connect with kids and help them realize that there's nothing to be ashamed about. Trauma is very, very common. And reach out for help, because there is hope and there is a future. But my thought is, we have to start talking about this earlier than high school with kids. And it's always been, especially when I was a kid, very hush hush. We don't talk about those things.
Exactly.
But nowadays, I think you were sort of saying this earlier, some kids aren't even aware of what's happening to them, that it's really an assault. And
yeah, you can get tricked. You can get tricked into, oh, come and do this over here. It's naughty. Don't tell your parents. You can get tricked into, this is normal. You can get tricked in, and yet deep down, it's not right, but you don't know, you can't really put your finger on it. And yet then years later, here comes all this emotional crap none of us really want to go through, and it's hard. And then do people believe you or not? And it's like, you sometimes need to seek help away from everyone
right.
And that's the hard thing for a young kid. They will just suppress it if there's nowhere to go. And I thank God for books like yours, where you can find, hey, this is normal. Like you're saying, trauma is common. One thing doing these shows, we've done a lot of interviews on people experiencing homelessness and the homelessness situation we have across this country. And as you know, Nancy and I travel full time. And let me tell you, it's a serious issue we have in this country, and it comes from, yes, there's drug addiction. Yes, our veterans suffer that. But 2012, when we started our tour, we had done interviews, and at that stage, 9-year-olds were the main age group that were experiencing homelessness. Now, what happens to those families, right? And we saw them, and that's what kind of spurred us on why we were doing a lot of what we were doing. And we were talking to a friend the other day, and she was like, well, how is this? I'm like, well, if you think about all these families that were homeless then, it was after the 2008 crash. And if you look at what's going on there's so many issues, fentanyl, there's housing being taken away really by giant corporations buying out neighborhoods and raising rates. So there's no middle class, neighborhoods. They're going away. We have serious issues, just like our land, our libraries, and all of these things. And so it's getting harder and harder. So homelessness is really on the rise, and cities, we deal with a lot of tourism, are battling it. But the experts all say, like, why is this? All comes from trauma, from like your immediate home, there's trauma everywhere, whether it's sexual abuse, drug addiction, things like this will pass down in cycles through families. So when you say it's common, it's really, really true. It is. I don't know anybody who had a perfect life. Like, it doesn't get over, like, and if you did, like, you need to go travel somewhere or something, go backpacking.
Yeah, no, I know. If a person isn't affected individually, there's usually someone fairly close to them that is, and that's, as you were saying, there's like this trickle down, this ripple effect of how people experience the trauma.
So that's why I think it's important for kids to have those stories, because maybe you can't go to a family member. Maybe your abuser is your family member.
That's right.
And then is the other like, is it your dad, is your mom, and the other one's believing the other one, and all of that mess, right? And there's always the step parent that's always suspect, no matter what. They're always a suspect one to the kids.
Unfairly, in a lot of cases, but
yeah, unfairly. I don't mean it that way, but it's kind of like you're getting the second eye, no matter what. For kids, it's like, oh, who's this now? You're not my immediate parent. So it's a hard thing, and sometimes they're not good. So in that case, you have to find someone you can communicate with, and have that understanding.
Right. And that's why we need books like this for this age group, because they become a discussion, a source for discussion between adults and kids and other kids. It's a way for them to talk about a subject in maybe feel a little bit safer talking about a subject, because it's a fiction book, and it's fiction but based on truth, and so it makes it a little bit easier to approach it and discuss it. And also, my books have a little magical realism in them, where it's usually in nature, where plants or creatures or animals work in a way to help the child or to teach the child something. So the magical realism also softens some of the themes in the book. And because this age group, you can't have anything graphic, of course. And the themes need to be there, and you can't downplay the seriousness, but there's still got to be humor and hope for this age group.
Right.
Who wants to read a book without it?
Yeah, and you have a good balance from your work as a teacher, as educator too, coming with that and having that balance. And I also think the big part of what you're doing as the Brave Girls collection is these girls are standing up for something other than themselves, and through that they're helping themselves.
Right. Yes, that's I really love that whole idea of a child finding their own voice, coming to terms with it, embracing it, but then using it in one way or another to help other people or to share with other people what is important to them. So, you know, in the case of Artemis, who didn't trust her voice because she stuttered, she found other ways to use her voice. Her voice spoke art or through writing, things like that. So it's not like you always, as a kid, I would never have spoken. I hated doing oral book reports were the thing.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And I couldn't stand it. I mean, I would get to the point where I wouldn't say anything at all. I just couldn't do it. So there are ways for kids like me to express themselves, to use their voice in other ways, whether it's art, dance, song, you know, there's just many, many other ways. And I want kids to be aware that there are other ways.
Yeah, I agree. And them standing up for other things and finding their voice for something else, they find it for themselves. Just with things we've done, like wildlife rescue and animal pet rescue. You know, we've interviewed so many people on this, and we keep saying, okay, so what is it that draws everyone to go to extreme to help these animals? Like we did an interview with women going out in the backwoods of the South and rescuing dogs from people that could shoot you when you go out there, like literally, right? And so we were saying, like, what is this? And we talked to experts and everything. They're like, if you've gone through something and you've been a victim in your life for some reason, right? You understand the nurture aspect a little bit more, and you have that drive to fix things. You know what I mean?
I do.
And you're doing it through books too. Like to me, that's you know, you understand, and so you have that extra caring. It's not saying that other people don't at all, but it's just, you know, when we were talking to all these women that did this, we're like, well, what is it? Well, I think because of this in my childhood or this in my childhood. It's really interesting about, you know, and I'm not saying people who love animals or anything or kids and do rescue work in that way don't have that. I'm just, I think when you go through something traumatic, you have this extra understanding of what it's like to be on the other side of the shoe kind of thing.
I think so. I think so. And the basis is, if you've gone through trauma, I think, I'll speak for myself. I had to face it myself before I could reach out and my writing. I had to, you know, figure things out. I had to come to terms with it. I had to get rid of the shame and the fear. You know, you never get rid of all of everything, but to come to terms with it myself before I could actually, give, you know, or hopefully help. Just like you were saying, some of the animal rescuers, you know, it's like you have to come to this place, and this vulnerable place, and which is good because the people I am reaching out to are vulnerable. You know, everybody has a vulnerability, but you know, hopefully in reading this book, they can connect to it and see that there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable, but there are ways to feel power.
Yeah, and feel empowered, you know, through yourself. Yeah, take your fear and that kind of the traumatic side and turn it into something positive, you know. Yeah, they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I hate using cliches like that, but you can't really beat it. It's kind of true, you know. I'd say. With Jett Jamison, talk a little bit about the banned books and you know, even going into libraries for her, and what was her. Just give everybody a little overview of that story inside the book.
Oh, okay. So yes, so Jett also had a very noisy home and would go to the library for peace and quiet. And sometimes it wasn't peaceful and quiet enough for her there. But in the story, she meets this wise nun across the street who suggests a book that could help her find peace, because Jett has made to-do lists. She's tried to find peace after her grandmother's death, and there's still this noise in her head. There are these voices, these people saying shh, 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 and she can't get away from them. So the nun, also inspired by someone in my own past, gives Jett the name of a book that might help her find peace. And the book's missing. She can't find it anywhere. And when she finally finds one copy, it's all marked up and pages are torn out, and then it disappears. So the outer journey that she's on is trying to figure out what's going on with this book, who's making it disappear and why, and what can she do about it? While meanwhile, her own voice has kind of disappeared in, as far as standing up for herself and understanding herself and letting that secret go. And so that's the basis of that. The book itself, the Resurrecting the Dragon is the book that she's looking for. And that's based on, I don't want to give too much away, but anyway, it also,
I know, so I'm letting you do it instead of me.
I almost said it, but I'm not going to say it. But anyway, it's a book that also has to do with, it strikes a chord with Jett in that there are some similarities to her own life in the book. So
yeah, and it gives her a mystery to solve.
And there's a mystery,
right?
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Who doesn't want a little mystery, you know?
That's right. That's right. She starts
Which
to
is empowering.
she starts to doubt people that she always trusted and thought were her friends. And it's yeah, she goes through a little tough time there for sure.
Well, it's coming of age stories, isn't it? Too, when you start having to make these decisions and be more discerning of people, you know, and not just blaming, oh yeah. No, it's there's always something else, right? There's always a third side.
That's right. That's right.
To a person too.
And
yeah.
she learns, you know, she learns that adults aren't perfect and that they make choices sometimes that don't seem right. But if you look into them further, or you talk to them even, you find out why they're making these choices. So the man behind all the censorship talk basically feared for his kid. And while I don't agree with him at all, you are able to see that soft side of him that's behind that tough, get rid of this book, we don't need it.
Right. Well, yeah, because that's true, you know, it's not all or nothing.
Yeah.
You know, unless somebody's a psychopath, you know what I mean? And then there's something wrong, you know. People get mad at me when I say, you know, people who do bad things comes from a reason, comes from a place. Maybe it's a chemical reason, maybe it's an abusive thing that's gone back, you know, those traumatic things. And yeah, we want them away from people so they don't do harm, but there's a reason,
Right.
you know, you can't just go, okay, boom, you know,
Yeah.
it's not like,
Yeah.
you know, there's stuff out there in life, and to be able to discern people and understand that not everyone's perfect. It's not black and white.
That's exactly what she learns, is it's not black and white. And, you know, there are some people that her grandmother was very religious. And then her parents were not, and she's interested to explore kind of all the facets of that, and realizes that these are just choices that we make in life, and that sometimes there really is no right and wrong about the choices that are made, your religious affiliation, what your profession is, things like that. But I think her world opens up in a way she wasn't expecting, and that's sort of the storm that occurs. And then hopefully you see it finally settle down in the end.
That's awesome, though. I think what you're doing is fantastic. Do you see, you know, going to schools with this and connecting with parents on it, like with these books going beyond the middle grader to the parents, to the educators, librarians?
So, yeah, definitely. Artemis, I've done a lot of school visits through the school librarians, library events, and things like that. People are really connecting with the environmental aspect of it. And then, so Jett is not out yet, but it's going to require a different kind of marketing, so to speak, because of the themes in the book. You know, you have to just be careful with this age group, and I don't want to, you know, re-traumatize or trigger someone because we're discussing a book like this. So it requires very delicate balance as far as facilitating discussion. So what I see for it is more, as you were saying, getting it exposed to parents, teachers, counseling centers, trauma centers, anything like that. And within that context, perhaps having book groups, facilitating book groups. So I wouldn't facilitate a book group on my own like I would with Artemis, but I would prefer with Jett Jamison to facilitate it with a social worker or with a school social worker or someone at the trauma center who feels comfortable working with kids and me in a discussion around this book. So it's a different thing. And I'm not sure.
That's good though.
It's not going to be easy, I don't think. And there are going to be people, like with any book, that are going to love it and people that are going to hate it and, don't want any part of it. But I'm glad that you're on board and you see its importance because, as you know, I really do. And so hoping.
Yeah, I see where it's going to be difficult. And I think when people have a really strong negative reaction, there's a real reason for that. There's going to be something deep down. Art is about creating emotion and connection. Yeah. And sometimes it's a negative reaction, and the negative reaction sometimes can be, 20 years later, a positive one. It's the same with music and things like that. It's same thing with stories. And it's very difficult. I think you're also in a difficult time frame as women are losing their rights. And so I think when it's in such difficult time frames, it's also more important to have tools, to hold on to, something to reread. And it's probably going to be something where we'll go back to it again and again,
Yeah, I agree. So. And I agree with you about the whole effect of art on people, the different arts that can influence you or can cause you to feel a certain way, or that you latch onto, or that you don't want to deal with, so, and it's that way with books.
And it all comes with timing, it really does. And it depends on your journey, everyone's personal journeys of where they're at, but I think for kids, it's going to be a road, but I think it's a worthy road. It's worthwhile. When you see a good fight, get in it.
Yeah, exactly. It was, I was uncertain about the marketing for this. And I happened to be able to talk to Jane Yolen, who showed up at my first book launch. Surprisingly, she came with a friend and I was just floored. But she said, if you ever have any questions about anything, let me know. And so Jett Jamison got in the picture, and I'm thinking, and I emailed Jane, and she said, can you Zoom tomorrow? And she was on a Zoom call. I don't know if you know who Jane is. She's a prolific children's book writer. She's written picture books, middle grade books. Her books she's had a book burned on the steps of, I think, the Ohio City Hall, Ohio City. So, yeah. So, anyway, she was on a Zoom with me for an hour, and her quote to me was, you know what? You need to put on your shark hat. She said she had a friend who was a poet and was afraid to get out there with her poetry. And she said, I made her a shark hat. I made a baseball cap with a little shark on it. And I said, you got to be a shark. Get out there. You can do this. And I have the shark quote in the back of my head all the time now, thanks to Jane.
I agree with that. And sharks are good. Isn't it Shark Week soon, or did it pass? I don't know. But
I don't know either.
I like sharks, I grew up in South Africa. There's great white sharks, so yeah. So don't mess with me, man.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I think she's really right. She's really right. And when one thing closes, just keep going, go where the water is open, where it flows, instead of beating your head against the wall because there's we got enough of those. But I think you're going to find a lot of positive reception.
Yeah, I've already gotten a lot of positive reception, even from people that I don't know. People saying, I wish I had this book. I also was abused. I mean, it's just opened me up into this whole new territory of people that have been through what I've been through and that are sharing their stories. And that's what this book, Jett Jamison, is all about. It's when you share your story, you become a part of a group that bands together. Your voice becomes stronger when it becomes, when it's with others, when you're voicing with others. And so, I just think that both of my books are please, get out there, please try to find your people,
Yeah, and don't, because if it waits till later, it's harder.
Yeah, don't wait till you're 50 to do this. I've said
It's
that
harder.
literally to kids, do it now, you guys, not.
Yeah, and that way you make better decisions.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you really do, because there's a lot of baggage that you don't understand. And
Right.
then later in life, you're like, oh, I see why I did that. Well, that's too bad.
Yes.
Because it does affect you in different ways of your life and you don't realize it,
Mhm.
but if you take care of it earlier and understand that you can, you're empowered.
It definitely. And you don't feel lonely. It's a
Yeah.
lonely place when you carry a secret that heavy. It's lonely.
That's really true. I think if it's, because sometimes abuse happens in like families, so like all the kids are in trouble, or but if it's a solo person going through something, that's very lonely and
Right.
shaming, and you
Right.
feel like you feel dirty with it too. So
Yeah.
it's and you don't want kids to feel that way.
Right. That's why a book like this needs a facilitator to help with the discussion. Because if you put a book with heavier topics in the hands of someone who's not prepared for it or who doesn't know what to do with it, you're back in the same place of a child being with a heavy topic all alone.
Yeah.
So it's got to be discussed. It's just my feeling.
I hope it gets into a lot of libraries and places that are easy to access it, because there's so many. I'm hoping that there's so much, kids are born into huge societies. Let's put it that way. There we go. That's a term. I'm trying to be politically correct and it's really difficult. I mean, I don't know if we're allowed, I don't know what to say anymore. It's getting harder and harder to talk, but they're born into societies that allow abuse to happen, and it's part of it. It's part of the culture. And I think because of the internet and having phones and things like that, that hopefully it's starting, that awareness is seeping through, that there's something outside those gates. Those big compounds, I'm talking about. I'm sure people can read between my lines here, but that they can escape. And I see it happening, just different societies of cultural beliefs that those kids need to get out, because it just keeps expanding, and it's very hard to get in to help them. And sometimes if they can get a hand on a book and realize, whoa, there's something on the other side of these gates, I can go, escape somewhere, and to be able to have places to go to. I think that's the other thing, is to understand, you may have a really hard time escaping, but there's help on the other side, and you need to plan it,
Yeah.
if you can.
The bottom line is getting help for sure.
Look, Tina Turner, she's a good story, right? Look at her. That was an adult and she had to escape as an adult, and look how she turned her life around.
Yeah, it's possible. It's definitely possible.
Yeah, for sure.
Not easy, but it's possible.
And worth it.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people will stick with the devil they know.
Yeah. Yes, it's true.
Yep, that is true. It's true. And so don't allow brainwashing to happen. How about that? So Kim, give everybody your website again so that everyone knows, because they can pre-order, right, on Amazon and all those places.
Yeah. Amazon, bookstores, what do you call it? Bookshop.org. But my website, if you go to my website, there are also all the buttons you can hit for different places to order. But the website is my name, KimberlyBehreKenna.com.
And then Instagram, Facebook.
Yes, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for now, anyway.
Are you threading yet?
I am not. I'm not a big social media person, but I'm doing it because,
you have to.
An author, but I haven't gone there yet.
Well, listen, I wish you the best of luck, Nancy and I both, with the book, and I'm sure it'll be a success. It'll be an interesting road. So stop by and we want to hear how it goes, you know.
Definitely.
And looking forward to the next one in the Brave Girls collection. That's exciting. We love what you're doing. It's very
Oh,
cool.
well, thank you so much for having me again. It's
Oh,
been
you bet.
talking
You bet.
to
We're waiting for the third book. Come on.
Okay, I got to get to work.
I know. I think you've got a lot of work on your hands now.
I do. I do. It's a little overwhelming at times, but worth
Ah.
it.
Well, thank you so much. Everyone, keep up with us at bigblendradio.com too. Thank you.